Hello and welcome to Choski's Review. My name is Josh Cho, and today I will be giving you a whiskey review on the Glenlivet 12-year-old. Here's the bottle. Decided to do this is my very first whiskey review, and I decided to do it on the Glenlivet 12-year-old. And I thought about which bottle to pick, and the reason why I picked this one was because of its ease in terms of getting one of these bottles. It is extremely easy to find. Probably the most easiest single malt Scotch whiskies to find here in the U.S. I'm based in California, but most certainly probably one of the most easiest single malt whiskies to find in the world, honestly. It's one of the most popular, highest selling whiskies, both here in the States and also worldwide. So that's partially why I decided to select it. What I'll do is give you a little bit of history about Glenlivet. I'm doing a little bit of research. I found that Glenlivet was one of the very first distilleries to be established legally in 1824. It says right there on the bottle. And it was established by a gentleman named George Smith, who's actually listed here on the bottle as well. George Smith, who decided to legalize his whiskey in the region of Glenlivet and decided to open up one of the very first legal distilleries. And interesting history lesson I found out, at some point he was given 2 pistols to protect himself and his distillery from receiving threats because of his legal distillery, creating sort of tension with the other distilleries. Other people were distilling alcohol illegally in Scotland, in that region of Glenlivet. And so there became the distillery that was established called the Glenlivet in 1824 by this gentleman. And then at some point upon his death, he gave the distillery to his son, J.G. Smith. So if you look at a Glenlivet bottle today, there are 2 names, and that is George and J.G. Smith, and that is the father and his son. So there it is. It's a small history lesson, Glenlivet, and the region of where this whiskey lies is in the Speyside region of Scotland. So if you know a little bit about Scotch already, then of course that's going to be the sort of slightly sweeter and fruitier Scotches that you can find of all those regions. And we're going to do a review on this whiskey, and I just wanted to mention a little bit about the bottle. If you can see, it's a green bottle. It's different among the other expressions. The other expressions, the 1518, have a clear bottle, so you can actually see the contents of these whiskeys. However, it's a little hard. Of course, you can't really see anything with this green bottle. Not too big a deal, but if you want to see the color, it's a little hard to see. So nonetheless, it's a really nice looking bottle. I think it's really quite classy looking, and I do like the labeling. It's got a nice label and pretty cool gold leafing on the letters, and pretty overall a good presentation. I think it's pretty cool looking. So I'm going to go off into pouring this in my glass and giving you my notes on the smell and the taste. Okay. Nice cork, pretty tight. This is definitely probably one of the first single malts I've tried. I would say most single malts probably that you can find in a bar, if they have a single malt Scotch, would be this guy, or the Johnny Walker would be the other Scotch, but that's not a single malt, it's a blended malt. So as far as single malt is concerned, I would say you would probably either find, if the Glenlivet wasn't there, there'd be a Glenfiddich possibly, and even a Macallan. I see a lot of Macallans out there as well. So I probably had the Glenlivet 12 as one of my first single malts, I would have to say, if I can remember. It was either this or the Glenfiddich 12. So it's nice to kind of pay sort of homage to one of my first single malts and review my very first single malts with one of the very first single malts I've ever had. This is my second bottle. I did get a second bottle as a gift, Christmas gift from last year from my fiance, and so it's a nice present to give if you want to ever give it. It's really easy to find and also very affordable. So as far as the color of this whiskey, it's usually what I like to do first when looking at a whiskey. I'm looking at its color, content of the whiskey, before I get into the nose. And to do that, I usually like to put it up against a light or up against a white wall, and just kind of look at what the color of the whiskey is, what it looks like. And I don't know if any color is added to this whiskey. A lot of whiskey distilleries do that in order to amplify the appearance of it, so that their customers, so it's more appealing to the market essentially. People tend not to want to buy whiskey that looks cleared. So a lot of distillers will end up often adding what's called caramel E150. It's a caramel coloring that's added to a lot of beverages such as Coca-Cola, from what I hear, and it's also used in the Scotch industry, whiskey industry. And usually, if the label of the whiskey doesn't say that it has no color added on the front of the bottle, Macallan does this actually. They're known for always saying no color added. Well, if it doesn't say that, it's assumed that they added some amount of coloring, even just a little bit possibly, to make their whiskeys more, appealing. So I don't know if they did or they did not, but there's certainly no information on the bottle that says that it doesn't. So if anybody from Glenlivet's listening to this review and you absolutely do not add any coloring to your whiskey, I would say make it official, put it on the label. But otherwise, if you guys know anything about it, if those of you who are watching this and know that there is no color added to this, I would really much like to know. That'd be really interesting to find out, and if you want to leave that in the comments below, I'd appreciate it. So as far as the color, if there is any color added to this, I would say it's probably minimal, considering it's already 12 years, maturation is already in the 12-year range. It's not that dark, so if there is any color added to this, it's got to be pretty minimal. So that's I prefer that. I usually like whiskeys that are natural, straight as possible. So this is probably minimal if there's any added color, and I believe this is chill filtered because it doesn't say that it's not chill filtered. That's probably as much as information I can give in terms of the color and the process. In terms of the viscosity, that's the next thing I usually like to look at, and the thickness of the whiskey will tell me kind of how oily it is, and that will in turn make me sort of gauge its sort of richness and its finish. So usually longer finishes tend to be with whiskeys that are a lot thicker in oil. A lot more oily whiskeys have a lot much richer and longer finish. I would say this is a medium to light viscosity. It definitely has legs, what they're called. They're tiers, is what they're often called as well, when you roll the whiskey against the glass and see the tiers dropping. And if they drop rather quickly, they're often known as being kind of thinner, lighter viscosity whiskeys. If they cling on to the glass and they don't really roll down very fast, it's a much thicker, heavier viscosity whiskey, much more rich in oils. So there's definitely some legs, I can see that, and they aren't running too fast, but they are dripping, and looks like a pretty decent oily whiskey for a 12-year-old malt. So before I get into the nose, I wanted to also mention about how this Glenlivet's matured. It's 12 years in age, so it's a minimum of 12 years in a barrel, and it's in 2 barrels. I just found out about this. So I always thought the Glenlivet 12 was only in an ex-bourbon cask. However, just went on the website today and I found out that they are matured in 2 separate oak casks. So it's actually one in American oak and the other is in a European oak. Very different in the way those 2 barrels emit a certain flavor, and both in terms of nose and taste. I would say the American oak is very classic. Has a very classic nose and taste of vanilla, really rich flavors, really rich sugary flavors, vanilla, honey, has that kind of intensity. And I would say the European oak kind of has more of a cinnamony, kind of nutmeggy, more spicier and savior notes. Is kind of how I like to interpret it whenever I have whiskeys that have that influence of European oak. So the Glenlivet 12 is a mixture between those two separate oak barrels. And as far as the percentage of how much oak, a percentage of American oak versus European oak, I have no clue. Unfortunately, there's no information about that on the website, nor could I find it easily on a Google search. So if you do happen to know what the percentage is, that would be great to also add in the comments if you'd like to. That'd be really interesting to know about. But I do not know what the amount is, but possibly my nose and my taste could probably kind of guide, maybe give a general estimate about how much American oak there is versus European oak. So why don't I just cut to the chase and get straight to it, to the nose. Okay, so right off the bat, because the ABV is well, it's the lowest ABV actually of a single malt that you can produce. If you're going to produce a single malt, it has to be a minimum of 40%. So it is a, you know, it is the base ABV. So it's not a very strong, you know, intense alcohol burn that you get from nosing this whiskey because it's at 40%. So right off the bat, it's really easy to smell, I would say. I don't have to worry about adding any water. I definitely don't need to stick my nose far from the top of the glass. I can really get inside of it and get a really nice full smell, you know, full breath of that nose, which is nice because it makes it easier for me to smell the whiskey. It's fairly light in the alcohol burn, but really nicely rich in the fresh fruits. I definitely get fresh fruits as the first noticeable smell. It's like fresh fruits and like a kind of grassy. That sounds kind of weird. It might not sound pleasant, but it's a kind of like a pleasant grassy note. It's got this fresh kind of green note with the fruits. And I would just say that, you know, I didn't really look at reviews before when I first had this, but I got, if I could characterize the nose that I get when I smell this the first time, even right now, the first fruit I'd have to characterize it with, it would have to be a green apple, which is a very common associated nose that a lot of other people get when they smell a Glenlivet 12-year-old. And I would say that's, you know, if there's a unanimous kind of agreement on the nose, it's, and you don't even know about it before you actually have already come up with that nose. It's, you know, it's a pretty agreeable, you know, definitive kind of profile that whiskey provides. And that's probably I don't know which barrel that would be from that influence where that green apple comes from. Maybe from the American oak, the kind of sweeter side. And there's certainly that honey and vanilla I get from the American oak, so it's not just the green apple. This definitely has some complexity to it. So it's green apple, honey, some, you know, vanilla notes, absolutely, from that American oak. And there's a bit of the spicy that comes in at the end. There's this cinnamon and almonds, toasted almonds. There's definitely some nut in this nose with the cinnamon in the background of all the other sweetness. The fresh fruits and the grass, the light grass note. So that's kind of basically what I smell in its entirety. Starts off sweet with that fresh fruit and a little bit of this nice grass, clean smell, and then it kind of has eventually the you know, vanilla honey and then the cinnamon and almonds, toasted almonds, maybe even some nutmeg now. And just to mention, if you notice that when I'm smelling this whiskey in my glass, I am sticking my nose inside the glass, and I often like to roll it around my nose left and right because then I can really get a sense of smell of the whiskey by using both nostrils. Tends to be the best if you want to know something efficiently, because at some point your nostrils might get numb from the alcohol burn. So if you just move your nose in the glass, or let the glass move around your nose, you really can get a nice, thorough smell. I also, if you noticed, my mouth is open when I'm breathing sometimes in the glass. That also helps me with the nose as well, because you can tend to smell a lot more things when you have your mouth open, actually, when you do nose. So if you've never tried that, if you've never tried that method yet with nosing whiskeys, try it and give it a shot and see what you think. Okay, so to the second part of this review, and that would have to be the taste. So here we go. Okay, wow. Sorry, it's taking me some time to process my thoughts. I don't know whether I should start off with the first impression or last, but it's easier to start off the last. But I'll rewind it. So the first impression is that it definitely doesn't have that much of a sting on the mouth, because it's at 40%, which is nice. Normally anything higher than 40%, I tend to want to add a few drops of water. And it's just putting just a little bit of, just getting a spoon, just dropping a few drops from your water to your whiskey glass. But I don't think I need to do that with this whiskey at all, because it's quite low, and I feel like I might just drown the flavor of the whiskey if I do that. So that's first impression, is that it's not a really strong burn, which is really nice. It's quite drinkable because of that. It's got a very, it has very nice development too. It's very smooth and gradual. It doesn't really stray off into an odd direction. It really has a very kind of nice, kind of steady pace with its development. So the first impression I get is that the alcohol burn is non-existent. It's kind of easy on the tongue. And then the flavors of the smell kind of really do match with the taste. I would say that the first noticeable flavor I could think of when I tasted was the sour green apple kind of flavor. There's that green apple kind of sweet soury note that I taste, and then it gets sweeter as it gets towards the back of the mouth. It starts to develop with the rich kind of sugary, honey, vanilla notes that I nosed first, and then towards the end, that cinnamon and that kind of savory toasted almonds, nutmeg kind of come towards the back as the development continues further. Let me give it another shot and see what else I can find in the taste. Has that nice vanilla honey flavor with that fresh fruit and that green apple. It's a really nice mixture. It's a very nice balanced, level of flavors that kind of go well with one another really, really, really well. Very easy to drink. Not really anything other than that in terms of the taste. I couldn't really pick up anything additional. I do get maybe a little more of that grass note now that I think of it, and that right now as it starts to develop, or finishes rather. I would say the finish is kind of, I would say it's medium light. It's not a long finish for sure, but it's got a nice, decent finish. Well, I guess that's about it in terms of the finish. And in terms of if I had to recommend it, I would definitely recommend it. It's a easy single malt to find, and it is a very affordable one. I think you can probably find a Glenlivet 12 mostly anywhere, at least here in Southern California, for under $30. I've even seen it as low as $23.99. So it's extremely affordable for a single malt that's been aged for 12 years. So in terms of the price factor, I couldn't recommend it any more. In terms of its flavor and complexity, I would say it's a good single malt for those who haven't had single malt before. It's an entry level single malt, so that's a great beginning. And even if you are a steady single malt drinker, you had single malts for a few years under your belt, I would still say that it's a decent standard malt to have in your collection. And that's basically that'll probably be the end of the review. Oh, almost forgot the rating. I am going to rate my whiskeys, so I should give you my rating on the Glenlivet 12, my very first rating. So I would have to say the rating that I give out before I give it, it is a evaluation that's not only about the quality of the whiskey in terms of its flavor, in terms of its notes produced for the nose and the taste, and not only is it about the amount of years it's been in the barrel, and what has been sort of the process to produce it, whether it's chill filtered or not, or color added. But all of those are really important. But it's also, I'm going to incorporate the rating based on the value, the cost, the affordability of the whiskey. So as far as the quality of the whiskey, I would say it's definitely a recommended single malt, and the affordability is also absolutely great, and it's easy to find, which is also another one. You can find it anywhere.